Architects of Prosperity, Episode 4.
Welcome to the Architects of Prosperity with your host, Ryan Lopez. This is the place where architecture meets investment and designs fuel profits. Join us as we build legacies and bring visions into reality. Your journey to building prosperity starts now.
Welcome to Architects of Prosperity. I am your host, Ryan Lopez. Today I have Paul Schaff on the show. Meet Paul Schaff. He is a seasoned investor who has begun his journey in real estate in 1991 while he was still in college. With a keen eye for potential, Paul ventured into passive investing in 2012, focusing on long-term rentals managed by a dedicated property management company. As the market evolved, Paul expanded his portfolio to include short-term rentals, and during the challenges of COVID, adapted once again to embrace midterm rentals. Known for a passion for creative finance deals, Paul is now transitioning towards the acquisition of larger apartment buildings. His strategic approach and adaptability have been key to his success in the dynamic real estate landscape. Join us as Paul shares his insights and extensive real estate investment knowledge on our podcast. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I've known you for a little bit now, and you are a really interesting real estate investor. You have a unique way of doing things. And when I first met you, you were really focused on midterm rentals, I believe. And now that you're moving from that into larger apartment, multifamily properties, are you still doing the midterm rentals? Is that still a market that you're interested in and still performing well?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. The apartment focus is new acquisitions. So everything we do just kind of builds on everything prior. So we still have long-term rentals. We still do creative deals. But we actually switched more so from the short-term rental to the midterm rental, just because that was a lot easier for us, and it's just a niche that we could carve out and try to be the best at it. And then always love the creative deals. And then just the timing is right for working with the bigger apartment building. So
fantastic. You started in 1991 while you're still in college. What did you major in?
Got a degree, a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering with a second major in Computer Science from UW-Madison. And at the time, It was the number 3 college of engineering in the nation. So
you're basically coming from an engineering background and getting into real estate simultaneously. Now, did you ever use that engineering background? Did you ever get into engineering, or when you found real estate, was that kind of your main focus?
I actually, picking up the second major really put me into the computer side of things. So more focused in computers. So I did a lot of programming. And out of college, I joined up with a local computer company, and then became a part owner and then full owner. And kind of that's where I was doing most of my focus from. Wasn't necessarily doing the investing side of things up until like the 2012, when we were actually taking it and making a concerted effort to buy properties.
Okay, so you did start off in a situation where
we were just wanting to use that for do it passively, because my business was taken full time, and we're looking at it from a standpoint of for retirement. That's how we originally got involved. So.
Okay, so you went through, like most people, you had a career and then you kind of pivoted into real estate investing. Are you doing that full time now?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
One day when I grow up, I want to. Still have the computer company. That's my full-time job. And so, but the nice thing about it is Sherry, my bride, is also in business with me. So she can do a lot of things. Well, if I'm busy or whatever, but also being an owner, I'm flexible on my time. So if I need to get away, I can, usually can get away, if I need to for closing or something like that. So a little bit more in charge of my time. So.
Okay. Now, you started off in short-term rental, Airbnb and things like that. What made you do a shift toward midterm rentals?
Okay, that's actually a great one. So we initially got started with the midterm about 2 years before COVID, and actually we hadn't even stayed in a short-term rental ourselves. It's just that it came up that, or you probably don't want the backstory. Sorry,
Fine.
we had an insurance placement company reach out to us, and it was just we had a unfurnished rental available, but they wanted to rent it for 6 months, and was in that would have ended up in the end of December. And since we're in the snow belt, nobody wants to move in September. We said, okay, if you're just going to do a 6-month lease, then it's got to be able to pay us through March. And they said, okay. So it was like a 1.5 times the normal rent rate, just as an unfurnished rental that they paid. And so it was like, okay, that's pretty cool. They ended up staying with us for a year at that rate. But when that happened, we got talking with the renters that the company also rented all the furnishings for that property. So linens, silverware, hangers, all that stuff. So we're like, I bet you if we did that as one package, that would be a good thing to do. And so that's how we got started in the short term. And then the way that we pivoted into midterm was during COVID. We had 2 places at the time, and Airbnb, where we were getting most of our stuff from, said you can cancel all your reservations without any penalties. So we went being completely full for 2 properties to be completely empty except for 2 days in August. And this was like in February, March. I don't remember exactly the timing, but it was like, whoa, that's not good. But 2 weeks later, somebody came in and said, hey, can we have your place for an extended period of time? It was actually a business. And they ended up staying with us for 14 months. So we're like, oh, that's great. We gotta stay focused on that. And so that's where we were then pivoting from, doing the short term to like a 30-day minimum. So, and focusing on businesses.
So it was really in a response to pandemic situation that really hurt the short-term market and kind of forced you to pivot into midterm.
I don't know if it hurt the short-term market, but once we had somebody like that made more sense than trying to do like a 3-day stay or a 7-day stay. I'm like, okay, they're going to stay with us for 3 to 6 months. That's what they do now on average. That's usually I shouldn't say our average renter is 3 to 6 months typically rental. So, so there's seems to be less wear and tear. It's easier. There's less headache of turnovers and everything. So it's just one of those things that a lot of stuff in real estate, you just have to be able to pivot and see what's going on. So, and it's good to invest in all cycles of the real estate as long as you can cash flow. So
now, what are some differences between short-term and midterm rentals that you can give our audience?
Well, I guess the stereotype is short-term rental is going to be for people who are looking for like on a vacation. There might be more of the partiers, large families, gatherings, is 30 days or longer. So they're people that are going to be a lot more stabilized, shall we say. Because typically our customer is a business that has multiple employees coming in. So we focus on like 2 to 4 bedroom for people to stay. So we stay away from the 1 bedrooms.
Okay.
Let me see. Sorry, there's a
Well,
slight lag here. Sorry.
yeah, I apologize. I don't know what's going on with it. You kind of paused for a little bit but that's okay. We're rolling with it. Not a problem. So is there a difference between so do you choose like an avatar and specifically focus your midterm rental toward that, like say specifically traveling nurses or doctors or traveling businessmen? Do you specifically design a property for that avatar, or do you leave it open for anybody who wants to do a midterm rental?
So it's pretty open. I mean, we're not specifically saying, hey, this is exclusively for a particular type of business traveler. So we've hosted many different individuals in there, so and different business types. So, but there are certain amenities that we try to make sure that we have, since they're going to be there for 40 days or 30 days or longer. Make sure that there's a full size washer and dryer in the unit, so that way they don't have to worry about, hey, if it's a community space, if they do their stuff, they can just do it, before they go to work, and then just throw it in the dryer when they get back, so they don't have to worry about somebody walking off with their stuff. We always make sure that we have good quality mattresses, because that's going to be the main thing. Is they're going to, while they're in the property, usually 8 hours of sleep. That's kind of important. So, and then just try to make it feel like home. So make it nice, and then usually have a workspace with like a laser printer and stuff, so that they have a dedicated workspace too.
That's a great idea. Actually, have an actual
If
home
they're
office.
doing, like home office type, and then high speed internet. That's always good too. So, and the nice thing about that versus a hotel, that's dedicated. You're not sharing it with 120 other rooms that are trying to stream Netflix digital videos at night, and then you have no access. You can't get anything done. So
Right. And so when you pick up a property and you get it ready, obviously for short-term and midterm, it's fairly similar in terms of, you want somebody to show up with a suitcase and have everything that they need ready to go. So it makes it super easy for them. So you have all the amenities set up. When you set up for a midterm, is there any difference really between short-term and midterm? I guess you wouldn't necessarily have a home office set up for a short-term rental. But what are your specific differences between the two?
we don't have any because we're not focused on the short term anymore. So,
Yeah.
But we were always, even on the short term, we were focused on business travelers, just because we're not in a destination area. Because most people think about, oh, you're going to go to Hilton Head, or you're going to go into the Smoky Mountains. Those used to be really hot for vacation, where people kept buying and driving, and the prices keep going up. So unfortunately, we have where it was a couple of years back saying that we were one of the locations that was best for investing in the short-term furnished rentals, and so we've got a lot more operators in the area. So if you're just relying on the Airbnb or VRBO, that's going to be a detriment. And a lot of people bought it based on. So when we just step back, so when we buy a property, we want to make sure that it will cash flow as a long-term rental. We're pretty risk adverse, so we want to make sure that if we just had to shut everything down, we wouldn't lose any money. We would still make money as a long-term rental. And then as a midterm rental or short-term rental, you're going to get 2 to 3 times the normal rent for that. So
if it's going to work as a long-term rental, it'll definitely work as a midterm.
Yep. And that's the advantage of then people coming in where like, oh, we bought this, and that it's going to be, we got to use the short-term rental prices to be able to get it, make this work. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, definitely.
Because of the competition. So
yeah, anything can happen. You have to pivot.
It's all about the cash flow.
Yeah, Absolutely. I think that's the one theme running through all investments that you make in real estate is cash flow first.
Well, it's going to allow you to weather the storm. So yeah, you want to at least have some cash flow, but then there's the other thing. The other side is the appreciation or forced appreciation that you can do with multifamily. Or you can go in and reduce the cost of expenses, increase the rents, and now that property is more valuable, not based on what the market cycle is doing in real estate. So
Yeah,
there's also other markets like in California where people don't care about the cash flow because they're going to get a huge payoff, in 10 years when it runs back up.
So they can hold on to it without cash flow.
Well, yeah, but you again, it's a kind of a mixture. If you spread things out, you're not that's just your one property. Yeah, that's gonna be horrible. But if you got 25, 30 other properties that that one might not be doing well and the other ones are cash flowing, it makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah, well, numbers are key for sure. Now, before we pivot into multifamily, just one last question on the midterm. Where and how do you advertise for your midterm rentals?
All over.
Such a Paul answer.
Websites. Well, we have our own website. We do postings on Facebook at Facebook pages that are just geared towards the midterm rental. LinkedIn. We work with local businesses and try to come up with, hey, here's a code that like a restaurant. If we send traffic to you, will you give them a little discount? So that way they know that it came from us with a specific code. So again, it's partnering with the local companies and then also getting out to your local businesses. So Chamber of Commerce, different, the animal clubs.
So definitely networking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you treat it as a business and be the business and be the best that you are in that area, the people that are going to be really suffering are the ones that are only relying on the online sites to drive traffic. Because when you're on that online site, you've got 100 other different ones. But if you're on my website, you only see properties of ours. So then my properties has become my own competition. So I don't care which one wins.
There you go. It's good to be your own competition, I think.
Sometimes, as long as it's not cannibalizing off of other locations. So,
yeah. So now moving into multifamily, when did you start seriously investing in multifamily?
Just recently. So basically, last fall is really when I started to make that pivot. So,
and what drove you to pivot in that direction?
The mastermind with Nate.
Yeah.
So basically showing him, where we're at, what we're looking to do. And he said, well, why don't you go to the multifamily? It's the same amount of work, but you're going to get bigger chunks at a time. So,
plus the economies of scale, like we just talked about earlier, having multiple units that one or two goes down. You're not, it's like you have 10 units, one of them goes down, you're only 10% out of your cash flow, where if you have one unit, the one that goes down, you're 100% out your cash flow. So,
well, okay, that analysis is great, but how much money are you talking about per unit? So if you've got 10 units out of, what you're out of pocket, is it the same? So if you only have one house, I guess I'm not really. So if you buy a house for 100,000 and you've got 10 houses for $1 million versus your multifamily for $1 million, also, I think that's more comparative. If that makes sense, because you're comparing the same amount of money. You can't just say, well, for 100,000, versus $1 million. That's not really comparing apples to apples.
Sure, you have to look at your cash flow and make sure that the amount you put in, you're getting the same amount of cash flow back. And then I kind of get what you're saying in terms of if you invest in 10 single family homes for the same amount of money, are you going to get more or less cash flow than investing that same $1 million in a 10 unit apartment complex? Maybe, maybe not. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Well, yeah, but the analogy is usually when people say, well, you have one property, one house versus, one apartment complex with 10. That's what I'm, but yes, but basically you're spreading your risk across 10 different properties. The other thing is, if you want to go to disposition, you can sell off that single family based on the, to a wider market versus the 10 unit. It's going to be a smaller market, but that's okay. You control it. So there's always the trade off. So typically there's you get better cash flow on the so like at a 10 units, I like to look at like 16 units or higher, just
Sure.
because the common area costs and stuff are spread out a lot more than with the smaller units. Because initially I also was looking at smaller units, but that just never made sense to me from a cash flow standpoint because like a 4 unit where you can get conventional financing on, you're only spreading it out, across 4 different properties versus 16. Mm-hmm. Then that chunk every month of that overhead is a little more oppressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, and everybody has their own methodology around that. Grant Cardone would say the minimum 32 units. And just even as somebody starting off, I mean, he wouldn't even touch a 32 unit at this point, but he's saying, that's where the average person getting into multifamily should be starting is in the 32 units. And you can agree or disagree. It's neither here nor there. It's just everybody has their own methodology and their own way of doing things and their own reasons for it.
Right. And there's a great strategy of, hey, you start with a 4 unit, live in one house, hack it, you get conventional financing on it, get that up and running. Now then go with an 8 unit, then go to a 16 unit, then go to a 32 unit. You just, each acquisition you double up because you already have that equity and experience. So it's an incremental, and you've already got a track record that if you want to have other investors come in with you, you can say, yeah, this is what I've done. So
yep, absolutely. And so that's a great way to definitely, if you're young, and that's, house hacking is a huge opportunity, especially right now. Maybe you can go into some of the reasons why for us in a second, but I mean, it makes so much sense to do something like that when you're young. It's accessible, it's affordable, and it's definitely something that, anybody can do. I think it might be a little bit different though if you're just starting out and you're a little bit older and maybe you have a little bit of money saved up, a little bit of experience, just life experience, and you have a better sense of finances and things like that just from living. I think it might be better to not start there per se. If you're like in your 40s or 50s or something like that, and maybe look into potentially getting into something a little bit bigger right off the bat. What are your thoughts on that?
It's never too late to get started.
Oh, sure. Of course.
The best time to buy real estate was 10 years ago. Second best is today. So,
yep.
So yeah, it all just depends on your strategy. Like you said, there's so many different ways to making money that you don't necessarily have to have money. You can do the creative financing where you can come in with seller finance. You don't have to put a lot of money down. So I don't want to dissuade anybody that is just trying to get started. It's pretty amazing. I wish I would have known that earlier on. I would have been probably a lot further along because we started out doing the traditional. We were buying things right off the MLS, putting the 20% down, and after a while, doesn't matter how much money you have, you're going to run out of money. So, but that's okay. I mean, we were buying stuff that that was 5 years old, that was fully rehabbed because the bank had foreclosed on it for 30. I think we started at $35 a square foot for like a 3,200 square foot 5-year-old property. We could order. I had a few more of those. That would have been awesome. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's hard
okay,
enough.
because of 2012, it's like, yeah. So like in the Midwest, we're like 2 years behind the coast, so we pretty much lag. And so it was like it was just starting to rebound a little bit here, and so it was taking a risk going into some of these bigger properties, but they end up paying off. So thankfully.
Great. And in multifamily, now that you're moving pivoting into multifamily, what are what is your criteria, personal criteria for looking at multifamily that's going to pay out that you're interested in?
Got to make money. Uh, we look for we look for a value add play. So typically we're going to have to find something off market. We want to stay in places that are 50,000 or more for population. With let me see, I don't know, stay in states that are rent friendly or landlord friendly. Excuse me. So I love creative deals. So if they're open to owner financing, that's huge. So try to make sure that they are, like a B and C areas and B and C properties. Because with the A properties, A locations, it's harder to necessarily do a value add, but that's not necessarily. I mean, if you can find a B property in an A area, then make it to an A area, then you can get paid off nicely. But those are more of a unicorns, but we're okay with those two.
And now, what's your methodology for finding these properties? Do you work with a broker? Are you trying to find them and get direct, to seller?
Right. Primarily, we've been doing like posting in the multifamily groups for properties to see what people have. We've reached out to brokers. They've been great also. So wholesalers are good. Brokers that have pocket listings, those are phenomenal. So all different areas. Haven't done the Facebook ads marketing towards business multifamily yet, but kind of working on that a little bit too. So
okay. Do you do any kind of use prop stream or anything like that and just skip tracing to try and get direct to owner, or is that sort of?
I have not yet. No.
I'm
primarily just been networking. Networking's worked out for us. So
yeah, it seems like and probably finding a couple of local RIAs who potentially have a lot of people in multifamily. They might have some connections and things like that as well.
Yep.
Yeah. I was kind of wondering about that. I know somebody who is into skip tracing, trying to get direct to owner with a lot of these apartment complexes, and going to interview him eventually and see how that works, how that's been working out, because it doesn't seem like it would be necessarily a good use of time. I think there are better ways than that to find properties. What are your thoughts?
Sure. Well, yeah, you definitely, it's a lot of time involved, but a lot of times you can get great deals. So, the payoff is at the end. But yeah, there would be a lot of wasted time, in my opinion. What I've seen. I mean, I haven't done it myself, but just the thought of where people are saying, well, yeah, we do, 1,000 calls each week with different VAs, and then we end up closing only 2 to 4 properties per month. It's like, oh man, that hurts. That's a lot of time.
A lot of time, a lot of money. VAs aren't free.
What?
Did you find a unicorn?
No, geez, I know. I've been serious for too long, You know me.
Yeah, I know. It's not a lot of laughter in programming, right?
Not usually.
It's more like, why isn't this working? Damn it.
Not in the debugging part, that's for sure.
So you're getting into multifamily 16 and over. Have you been able to close on anything yet? I know you said you just started very recently. Have you been able to close on anything yet?
Nope, we found a lot of ones we didn't like. So
yeah. So they say in single family, you're going to look at 100 properties. You're going to make an offer on 30 properties, and you might get 1 or 2, right? Something like that. What is your experience in terms of numbers on multifamily properties?
That's a good question. I haven't looked at that many properties yet. So, and since we haven't closed, I can't tell you what that's going to be. So
I was just wondering if maybe you
not answered.
Yeah, just maybe if you heard something from Nate or somebody else along those lines, what your expectations should be when you're looking at multifamily properties.
No, no.
Okay. I'm guessing since there's fewer multifamily properties than there are single family residences, you're probably going to be looking at a few more before you find something. It's probably not going to be as easy as a single family residence.
Right. That's why we continue to do both. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And I guess, just kind of a closing question. What would you suggest for people who are just starting off in real estate? How would you suggest they get into it? And what are the steps? Like, how could they design themselves a career in real estate investing?
wow, that's a good question. A career, honestly, sorry, I don't have an answer to that one. I don't even have a career in it. So
Well, a side hustle, a gig, a thing to go along with, because you're absolutely right. You're not going to just immediately design a career unless you're independently wealthy, unless you won the lottery or you have a huge inheritance. You might be able to create a career in real estate investing. But for the most part, I think a lot of people don't move into full-time real estate investing for many years until they can get to the point where they can retire off of the proceeds from their current holdings and then move on to expand that. And I think that's pretty typical. So maybe to design a career around it was the wrong choice of words, but
sorry.
how does somebody get into, how would you suggest that somebody just starting out get into real estate and start developing their portfolios and moving toward retirement?
I would say be a real estate entrepreneur. Don't be a real estate investor. Real estate investors are the ones that are putting up the cash. So if you can find deals, you can either wholesale them, you can syndicate. You're always going to find somebody that's good. You can JV with. You can help. You can find somebody that is very successful. They can take you under their wing. You can get mentorship. So there's so many different ways you can do. Buying notes. You can buying tax liens. There's different ways of making money in real estate, but don't limit yourself to the traditional things. Really ask. Who do I need to know and how do I do it?
Great. So networking and mentorship is the two really key things that you would suggest somebody starting off find right away.
I would think so. Go into like a local real estate club and start finding out what people are doing and seeing how you can add value to them. If you're just starting out from square one and you have no experience whatsoever, start learning. But then again, look at different avenues and don't just don't put blinders on and say, well, this is the only way I can do it. There are so many different ways that you should kind of look through it and say, what could be interesting to me? What are your strengths? And what are you willing to put the time and effort in? Because this is a business. It's going to take time and effort. People see the overnight success, but they didn't see the 10 or 15 years that the person did to get that overnight success. Or, sometimes even 3 years with the advent of this internet and, where the advertising can be and AI, that's going to shorten things down also. So how's that for a non-answer answer?
It's a perfect Paul answer. I love it.
Well, unfortunately, it's, the sky's the limit when it comes to real estate. So I don't want to put a lid on anybody's, dream or anything like that. And wouldn't want people just to expect, so in my path, I've seen a lot of people come and go saying that they're going to wholesale. So they come to a RIA meeting, sometimes 2 or 3. We want to build my buyers list, and then never see them again. So to me, that's very frustrating. So you have to learn and apply. And when you take action is when everything becomes real. So if you don't take action, if you just learn stuff, you're going to learn things. But until you actually take action, you're not in business. and you're not going to succeed. So it's really just taking massive action.
Well, it takes a lot of hard work and dedication, and it's not, I think there's a lot of internet gurus out there that are, suggesting otherwise, and everybody thinks it's going to be, super easy to get into real estate and, entrepreneurship or investing. And that's, by the way, a great point. I just wanted to point that out, that there is a big difference between the two mindsets and the two applications. And I'm gonna switch that for myself. As a matter of fact, I say that I'm a real estate investor, but I'm gonna change that to real estate entrepreneur. So thank you for that. But
Sure.
I think that a lot of people, like we were saying, you don't quit your job right away. You're going to have a full-time job. You're going to be working 40 hours a week, and then whatever level of dedication you have is going to determine how many hours you put into learning about real estate investing and entrepreneurship, and actually applying what you're learning. And so, I mean, for I think a lot of people that I know, it's like equal. So they're putting in at least 80 hours a week, 40 hours in their real job, and 40 hours a week in real estate investing. It's not an easy task. You have to put in a lot of time and a lot of effort. Now, it's not going to be forever, of course. But when you're first starting out, it's a combination of learning and applying and making mistakes and learning from those. And you have to do that. And the more time you can put into it, the faster you can move on to the next level. I think that's more my opinion on that. I think you would agree, though, that it's like the first few years of getting into real estate are going to be your hardest.
Sure. And if you need to be able to adjust with the market. So just because you did this 2 years ago doesn't mean you're going to continue doing that same thing. So you got to be able to pivot. So, and then, you definitely need to have stamina. And one of my favorite quotes is that you can judge a person's dream by the size. You can judge the size of a person's dream by what stops them.
Got it. Yeah.
If you come up to an obstacle that is this big, then you quit, and that's how big your dream was. But in America, we love the underdog movies and always root for them. We always feel good. But what about when it's you as that underdog? Don't let anybody stop you.
100%.
And parting just
a little
keep going.
parting wisdom. All right. So now just a couple of last things. I always do these little mini segments at the end of every show. And one of those is, I just want to ask you, what is your favorite book for real estate investing? What would you suggest everybody read?
That's a good question. I don't think I read anything specifically for real estate.
What?
I heard Rich Dad Poor Dad is supposed to be pretty good, but I never read that either. So
that was a phenomenal book. Yeah, we discussed that. As a matter of fact, I had Chris Strickland on not too long ago, and so we talked about that. That was his suggestion for a good book.
Okay.
All right. You get your knowledge from someplace. So do you have podcasts or do you have a specific newsletter that you subscribe to that you really love?
Really, the S&P has really been where we get most of our stuff from. So we've had a lot of training, a lot of courses. So it wasn't necessarily a book per se. So we've had, different mentors and throughout the years. So constantly investing ourselves, but not necessarily just on a per book basis. And podcasts, no, I don't. We're not really doing. One of these days, I got to learn how to do a podcast or watch one.
Well, you'll watch this one, I guarantee that.
Right.
And just so people know, too, you mentioned SMB. That's the Social Media Blueprint. That's Nate Armstrong, his program for real estate investing. So we just wanted to make sure people knew what you were talking about there.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the other thing is, right now we're focused heavily in learning AI and seeing how we can apply that in our business. So we're actually rolling out an AI bot for closing that will engage through like Facebook Messenger.
Wow. Well, that already pre-answers my next question is what is the one thing in your arsenal of tools that you have that you think is the best thing that people should take a look at? And that may or may not be it, but that was a good answer for that question.
Actually, I've got a better answer to that. Look at your business and see what issue or anything that could be made easier or relieve an issue that you're having. Find a tool to take care of that. So that way you find you look at your business first and then find the tool. Not, hey, this AI stuff is really great. Let's put it in our business. How are we going to do it? That's the wrong way. You get the shiny object syndrome, which I've been distracted by that occasionally too. So, but that was some good advice that I got to say, hey, this will actually alleviate. There's a real business need for this, and very simplify things and save me time and our acquisitionist time for weeding out the tire kickers. So.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, it's not the shiny object chasing so much as that we want to be the first to do something. I think it's kind of our entrepreneurial spirit. There's something brand new out there. It's this AI thing. We got to be the first to figure out how to incorporate this into our business. I think it has more to do with it than like the shiny object, because I don't know. There is a mentality to that, and but as we all know, sometimes being the first one in is not the best position.
The early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese.
There you go. You just look at like Friendster, then MySpace came and crushed that, and then all of a sudden Facebook comes out of nowhere and crushes MySpace, and it's because they kind of laid the foundation of what was expected, and so Facebook was able to just capitalize on that, I think, in a lot of ways.
I've heard a lot of people say that you want to find an idea that's already out there, that you've got that's already there. You've got people that are already big companies at that, but then come in and beat them at their own game, because now they've become so large that they can't pivot on a dime. But you can come in and outperform and give a better product and a better experience to those customers, and just dominate that marketplace, even if it's a small section of it. Instead of having here's something brand new, now I have to explain why you want this, but people already know that they want it, and the other way around. So,
and then this is how we made it better. Then
right.
This is why you want ours more than theirs.
Well, your example just showed how that happens.
Yeah, it's really incredible. So yeah, it's not always the best to be the first in. Let somebody else figure out, do all the hard work of figuring out how to make it work for their business, and then you come in and just go, yeah, mind business, and then figure out how to do it better too. It just sometimes that's the best way to go, especially with these new technologies and new things coming out. All right, and I guess last but not least, can you give us a quick market snapshot of where you think the market is now and where it's going to be in the next few years?
I can guarantee that it'll either go up, stay the same, or go down. One of those three.
Sure, you're not a politician.
No, but at the very beginning, I said I'm risk adverse, so I'm not one to make predictions. Sorry.
Well, you got to kind of make some predictions for your own investments, though. I mean, you got to work on something. So my thought is again, and nobody's going to hold you to this. It's just where you think things are going to be going, because I have my own ideas. I'm just kind of curious about where you think the market cycle is right now, and where you think it's going to be in a couple of years.
So, from a standpoint, real estate's all location. So in one area it's going to be different than others. You're going to have hot markets and cold markets. Everything else being equal, right now we still have this pressure of people that are locked into low interest rates, and then the increase in the inflation, the prices have gone up. There's a incentive for them to stay in place monetarily, because they're not going to, they're going to pay a higher interest rate. They're going to get less money or less house for their property, for their money. Excuse me. That so I think that constant pressure is going to keep the prices stabilized, barring any war or civil unrest or some huge national disaster like, or even a COVID type thing. So
Yeah,
because we're still short of number of properties that people need. So I think there's still that pressure we haven't caught up to since the crash way back in 2008. So what's your predictions?
I think we're still moving down. I think I think the business cycle hasn't finished yet. I think we've been in a recession for a while. I think people are ignoring it largely. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I think they're going to try to lower interest rates over the next probably 6 months ahead of the elections, because that's kind of what they always do. And I think that we're going to see a bump from that. But I think shortly after that, they're going to realize that was a big mistake. They got to start raising again. And I think it's going to be held there for a while, if not get higher, until we see a complete shift and a complete de-acceleration of the rampant inflation that we're going through. And so again, that just means they're going to be printing money ahead of the election to lower the interest rates. Then they're going to contract the money supply after that again, and interest rates will be going back up. And I think that's when people are going to get hit hardest. I think we're going to hit a slump, and then it's going to take about 2 more or 3 more years to come back up. And so I'm looking at probably 2027 maybe, when things really start moving back up again. So I think we're kind of like this. We're going to have a slump again, and then we're going to start coming back up slowly up through 2027. That's my prediction, and we'll see how close we're. I'm not betting anybody on it.
Well, that's the great thing about networking. I've got smart people like you in my life.
Whatever. No, I have smart people that I'm getting that information from. So I don't know. Maybe they have smart people that are getting their information. Maybe they have smart people they're getting their information from, and then they have smart people that they're getting there. Who knows how far it goes? I don't know.
So in other words, it's still a good time to buy.
I guess, it's like there's never going to be is like you said, if it cash flows, if it makes sense and the numbers work, it's always a good time to buy.
Right. And then if there's that dip coming up, that's always a good time to buy too.
That's right. So, and then on the way up,
you don't try to time the market,
Well, the only time it's probably the only time it's probably not good to buy is when it's at the very top. So, and that's not going to happen for many years. So, I think we're going to be pretty good in terms of real estate entrepreneurship for the next 5-6 years.
But wait a minute, that's the way that the average investor buys in the stock market. I heard it was a stat that was like 80% of the American investor, the U.S. investor, buys at the top and sells at the low. So, well,
that's what they were saying. Everybody does everything the wrong way. That's why you've got the wealthy getting wealthier and the poor and middle class getting poorer. It's like, they want to invest and do things like the wealthy, but they haven't put in the time and the effort to understand how things work. And that's why Warren Buffett always tells people is like, the best time to invest is when there's blood in the streets. And then when, everybody's doing it and having a good time, it's the worst time to invest. Run from those investments. But people see everybody having a good time and they jump on the bandwagon, and that's exact worst time to do it. So it's really funny. It's just, we're always going to have that aspect of it. So it's sort of like just almost like, it's not as simple as this, but you almost have to change your mindset to do the exact opposite as everybody else is doing.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So when everybody's saying, "Oh, you shouldn't do that right now, it's the worst time ever." Well, unless they're Warren Buffett, you probably shouldn't listen to them because, if they're the average person, it's probably a good litmus test to be like, yeah, that means it's a really good time to jump in and do something.
Right.
But, we'll see. All right, Paul. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but we do appreciate repeat guests. So I would love to have you back on again to talk about something a little bit more specific, maybe something that you're doing in the moment that's exciting, and sharing that with the audience.
Sure. Check out your prediction, how that's going too. That's always good. We'll track that.
Yeah, keep coming back. If you want to put $1 bet on it, I'm good for $1.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Like, I like my $1.
I said I'm risk averse, man.
Reminds me. It's like I always tell people I only gamble when I know I'm going to win.
Right.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Well, that's not gambling." And I said, "Yeah,
like,
the other guy doesn't know that." No, I'm just kidding.
Awesome. That's so good. So,
all right.
Anyway, always a pleasure, man.
Always. Thank you so much. You take care. Have a great one.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Architects of Prosperity with your host, Ryan Lopez. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit reijunction.com, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Architects of Prosperity.